Awesome. Here we are, John. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Coach's Corner. And I'm here with co founder of Seven Movements, John Sinclair. For some of you OGs of the Seven Movements family, you'll remember our old Ask Sinner show. This is pretty similar. So, what this is actually an opportunity for those in the Seven Movements community to ask questions to our coaches and actually sort of you can get free coaching from some of our top coaches that are working within the community. So John is obviously co-founder of Seven Movements, our chief movement engineer, and welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, bud. I'm excited
Yeah,
for this. We actually I haven't seen any of these questions, so it'll be a fun time answering some of these, and hopefully I can do it justice. Hopefully we can help some people out here.
Well, this is supposed to be it's like a true coaching experience, right? You're always
That's
having to
right.
ask questions right on the spot. So
Yeah.
the first question I wanted to address, and it's come from a few different people. So I'll take this one on, John, because you're not as familiar with the actual community, the technology as I am. So we get the question a lot of like, where do I start? Where's the best place to start when I join the free Seven Movements community? And my answer is always take the free course on how to build your Seven Movements wellness plan. And from there, you're going to find the habits and behaviors that you need to either change or implement into your life in order to execute on the goals that you've set. And then the second part to that is sign up for our Kickstarter program where you'll actually have a couple of sessions. There'll be an introduction to coaching. We'll go through your plan with you and help you decide where you're going to need supports. Maybe you're going to need just some microdosing programs that Seven Movements have that are on demand and you can do on your own. Or maybe you need, 12 or 24 sessions with a guy like John, an exercise coach to help you get started. So that's really where to start in the community. But let me pose this question to you, John, on this, because I know you get this question a lot from people who are coming from a place of, okay, I haven't been doing much for my health during the pandemic. I know I should be. How do I get started? Where do I start?
Well, the reason why we built the course was to get you to almost like it's like you've already contemplated the idea of starting, and now we're moving into actually taking action. But in order for a habit such as exercise to be introduced into your life, you have to be both ready and willing to change what you're currently doing, right? And so you can be ready to change and then to add exercise back in, but you're not willing to. But you can be willing to and not ready. And so the idea of the course is to get you both ready and willing to start thinking about how movement can change your life and that it needs to be a daily habit. I have specific habits that I do for myself which set me up for the success of the programming that I'm going to do in that given period of time. Because like you, I have goals. I have things that I'm trying to get better at. And, for me, I'm trying to make sure I can beat father time and never have to go see the doctor. So those are two major goals for me, is that I don't want to have to, age in a kind of clunky way. I want to make sure that I'm efficient with my health and wellness for the rest of my life. In doing so, I have to follow specific things that we call them building streaks. You're trying to build a streak at being consistent. And Dan, we've talked about this on many occasions. Consistency trumps intensity in just about anything that we do. So the more consistent you can be at developing a habit, therefore makes the things that you choose in terms of your movement a lot more sticky. Because if we can get the exercise that you love doing and you can make that part of your daily habit, you'll start to reap the physical, mental, cognitive, social effects that come from those. And then that will now make you want to do more and you'll want to move a little bit more. So the first step is getting ready and willing to begin that exercise habit. Step 2, start to include some daily doses of smaller bouts of exercise in your day and get in the habit of that, and then start moving more. So the more we start to make you move efficiently and pain-free, and you start to feel the benefits that are happening it from, as we say, the 4 key domains that we talk about at the Institute of Motion is physical, cognitive, social, and mental. You start to see those improvements. Then you're about ready now to start taking on greater doses of exercise. So that's where we want to get you started.
Yeah, I like that. And what are like a couple, since we're into it, what are a couple of like little habits that you do to ensure that you're executing on that goal of challenging father time, as you put it?
Yeah. So first thing in the morning when I get up, I go grab a big glass of water and I make sure that I drink that big glass of water. Right. And then nature does its thing. And then I decide to come into a quiet place and I measure my heart rate variability. And you might say, well, what is that and why is that important? What I will say is that it determines what my tolerance for stress is going to be that day. So it's a measure of my autonomic nervous system, which is my body's ability to tolerate stress. And then by getting that measurement, that tells me, all right, this is what I know I have to do today. This is whether I've got a green light, a yellow light, or a red light as to whether I can make that happen today. So I'm listening to some biofeedback and then building my program based on that. So, I've done that now. I'm coming up on, I think I'm 725 straight days I've done that. So 5 more days and it'll be every single day I've measured my heart rate variability for 2 years straight. So that's my streak right now.
That's a pretty good streak. I mean, that's what we call consistency. So I love that. And everyone should remember, like, John's been obviously doing this for a long time. That's a great habit to get into. And yours can be a lot simpler than that. It can be, well, drinking a glass of water is pretty simple, but one of the tools we have in the community that people should start accessing is our 7-minute morning challenge. It's free to go do, and it's something you can just get up, do 7 minutes of exercise first thing in the morning. So really good way to start. So John, I have a few more questions for you, and these are a little more specific from some of our folks in the community. And a lot of people have set their goal. One of their goals is losing a little bit of weight. That just is something that they've thought is important, particularly after the pandemic. I got a lot of comments about, I gained 15 pounds over the pandemic. They call it the COVID-19, I guess you get it, right? So one of the very specific questions is, okay, let's see, let me get this right. So I'm chronically overweight. So I'm assuming that means severely overweight. And exercise generally makes me hurt. Where should I start? It's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, most exercise programs are built with a dosage that, is going to be too hard for you to be able to handle that total amount of stress. So let's get this clear right off the bat. Exercise is a physical stress to the body. So it also can become a cognitive stress. It can also become a mental stress. So all stress is either good or bad. Good stress is known as eustress, EUSTRESS. Bad stress is called distress. So we've all had a lot of distress over the last couple of years. Adding more distress or too much stress to a system, to an already stressed system, will cause you a decrease in your performance and a decrease in your health. So if you are, as the person said, chronically overweight, or maybe just overweight for a long period of time, we might suggest that you do what our whole program is based on, which is just small little doses at a time, more frequently throughout the day. And so what we might say is we might start with choose one exercise that you know that you can do pain-free, right? And then repeat that exercise for 1 to 7 minutes at a time. That might be your first prescription or first dose we prescribe to you. And then go ahead and do that maybe a couple times a day and see how your body responds from it, right? The goal is to do this as frequently as you feel that your body can handle that stress, right? As opposed to us doing, going to the gym 3 times a week and exercising for 60 to 90 minutes at a time. Well, in order for me to do a 7-minute dose that equals 60, right? So what's that? I got to do between 8 and 9 doses of 7 movements all in one shot versus us doing it spread out throughout the day so that my body can tolerate that stress. And so that's really what it comes down to is, exercise and seeing change in your body or losing weight is about stress and adaptation. So we can introduce exercise for you, and there's going to be some adaptation that's going to occur. It could be a positive adaptation. It could be a negative adaptation.
Right.
And if the dosage you choose is too high for you right off the get-go, it's going to be a negative experience, and it's going to be harder for you to lose weight. And so that's why a lot of people have been really successful not exercising and losing weight, is because they didn't add a ton of stress. In fact, they took the negative stress away from them from probably some of the nutritional things that they were doing, or lack of nutrition and lots of foods that weren't healthy for them, right? Or they now just started eating healthier or eating more. And then what ended up happening is they ended up losing weight without the exercise. So we have to remember that any exercise prescription, there's no such thing as bad exercise, right? There's poorly prescribed exercise for that particular person at that particular time. And so what we aim to do is we find that if we give you a smaller dose over a shorter period of time with some really smart strategies that we've put together that are about addressing the whole organism mechanically, so how we move in time and space, and a lot of our movements that we put together with 7 movements is addressing training the whole body at once. That way we're not specifically doing one thing for one part of the body and then exhausting those tissues or compressing those joints in one particular area. So that's the approach that I would take, even just coaching my own clients, coaching people that are coming to see me for the first time, is we spend more time working in as opposed to working out. So work in would be exercise that bring energy back to the body, not working out, expending or taking energy away from the body. Because most often we need to build back. We need to build into the system and bring energy into the system, as opposed to always trying to expend energy or burn calories and do all those things to help you change. So those things will come, but if you're not active and you're overweight, then you're already dealing with some stresses. We have to give time for the body to adapt and do it in a safe manner. Right.
That's right. Yeah. I love that. I love your explanation on the dosing of exercise is so important. And I know when you go and build out your wellness plan, we're putting it into 4 buckets, right? And you need to remember that only one of the buckets is exercise. We also have nutrition or diet, diet, recovery, and think, which is sort of your mental well-being. So all those pieces are super important, and you can address the habits and behaviors that'll affect those as well. So love the dosage stuff. We see, I guess, would you call it folks overdosing on exercise sometimes when they're trying to lose weight and maybe going 7 days a week to the gym and really trying to do it? Like, is that how you would frame it up?
Classic fitness industry overdosing, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, you have to do some of the exercise programming that is popular in the fitness industry. Like, you have to be in excellent cardiovascular shape, and you have to have excellent strength endurance. Most people walking off the street will not fare well in that environment.
Yeah. Well, and we know that, we see it, and we usually end up working with clients who have participated in such a thing and they're now looking for something different. So great. That's an awesome answer. So let's go to the next question, which I was going to put these together, but they're similar but different. So this person says, hi, John, I have a shoulder injury and I want to continue to do strength training. Do you have any recommendations for this person?
Well, I can't be I can't answer specifically because I don't know what your shoulder injury is.
Yeah, let's take it more broad. Let's, you have an
Okay.
injury, you want to participate in exercise still in some
Mm-hmm.
fashion. How do I go about thinking about that, just even philosophically, so you can start thinking about what you can do versus what you probably shouldn't do?
Philosophically, what we would do is we want to try to create space in a joint. In order to do that, let's say, so a typical injury could be, I'll pick one here. So let's say you have a tendonitis in your shoulder. Tendonitis is a swelling of the tendon in the shoulder, usually from overuse, or you've impinged a tendon. Specifically, let's say the supraspinatus tendon, which is one of the rotator cuff muscles on the back of the shoulder. It gets trapped underneath the acromion process of the shoulder blade, and it becomes inflamed. If you have any injury to that, overhead exercise where I'm pushing a weight overhead is going to become somewhat discomfort for you. Then we want to avoid overhead exercise and pressing exercises until we decrease some of, do one of two things. We decrease the amount of inflammation in that area, and or we create a little bit of space there. The problem with that is that most exercise programs are driven around the linear exercises, right? So we've got like presses, you got forward raises, you got lateral raises, all the isolated exercises specifically for the deltoid, for the chest, for the trapezius. Like those are all typical kind of tissues that are involved in what we would see for a shoulder exercise. The challenge that we incur is that we need to start to learn a little bit about our structures, and we need to learn about how healing takes place. So the first thing we think about is, in order to heal anything, we need to bring circulation to that area. And so if I bring circulation to that area, one of two things happens. One, we move fluids into that space, then those fluids need to be exchanged. So if I bring lots of blood and lots of water to that area, it forces all the stagnant fluids that are sitting there to have to move out of that space. And in doing so, then we get, oxygen-rich blood to the area, which helps with healing. And we get rid of some of the waste through the lymphatic system, moves and pushes some of that inflammation out of there. The other thing that happens when we drive circulation into a joint is it actually creates space in a joint. So, when you turn your garden hose on down, you see the garden hose kind of expands a little bit, right? And that's due to hydrostatic pressures in as water runs into a system, it's going to expand, and then that will create a pressure change, and then we get expansion in the tissues that, or in the device or tube that the water is running through. Well, your tissues are very similar to that. If we drive water to a particular area, it's going to create expansion in a joint. So just by doing something as simple as rubbing it, this friction in this particular area, and I drive a lot of heat into that area, then fluids are going to move to that area. So I'm warming the tissue, which means that the layers of the tissues will become less viscous. So that means fluids are going to move easier through there. The different layers of tissues are going to slide easier. And just by me compressing the tissue and then stopping and compressing the tissue and releasing it, I'm going to create a pressure change, which is going to move fluids there. Essentially, what will happen is that joint will now expand in its space. And then now that tendon's not going to get bumped into that spot. So the space between the acromion process and the greater tubercle of the shoulder is only about, I think it's only about 5 millimeters in most people. So you don't have a lot of space there, but imagine if you increase that space by 20%, right? Which was 1 millimeter, which is you can do that just from rubbing and scrubbing an area. So this technique, which is called osteofascial technique or self-myofascial release, if I do some work directly into the muscle tissue itself, like a trigger point release, anytime we do compression or friction, then that's going to improve that joint. So the first step of making your shoulder feel better, or any part of your body feel better, is to drive circulation there to improve healing, decrease inflammation, and create joint space. From there, then we can start looking at, okay, if my shoulder's moving better, now I have freedom to move into that space. So I can go into a press here. I can press out here. I can press behind me. I can reach my arm across my body without pain. Then now that area now sends information within that joint back to the brain and tells the brain that things are safe. Right. Which then the brain says, good, I can turn on muscles, turn them on and off the way they need to in order to support that joint and get those tissues to get healthier. Because the only way you can make a tissue heal is you need to load that tissue, and you need to load force through the tissue so that the body will signal collagen to come to that area and lay down collagen along the lines of stress to support and heal the tendon if it was a tendonitis.
Right.
So lots of information there. We would go into lots in depth as to what we would do for a particular individual, but the first step is always circulation. And you will see that in our programming for anybody that has wants to do a program based on a particular area of the body that is not working well or is not functioning well, or you have pain in a certain area, the first thing we'll always do is bring circulation. And so I'm somebody that's always suffered from, or not always, but in my later years here have suffered from low back pain. One of the first things I do in the morning is I grab a device called the Hyper Ice Venom. I wrap it around my body. It's a compression belt with vibration and heat in it, because that increases circulation to my lower back. So I've been stagnant sleeping all day. I wrap that thing around me, I turn it on, and for about 15 to 20 minutes, I'm driving heat to that area. And then that improves my ability to move in my lower back. So there's all kinds of strategies that we can employ to make you feel better. It's just crucial that you go see somebody that can help explain how healing occurs and how movement can help aid in the healing process.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you just really, really outlined the importance of going and seeing a professional if you're trying to exercise and you're experiencing pain or discomfort, or recovering from injury, and why that's important.
I mean, there's a reason why there's really good health practitioners such as physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists. These are all licensed individuals that spend their life and their entire careers around making sure that you're not in pain. So what we do at our with 7 Movements is we help support them with exercise strategies that you can do frequently throughout the day to aid in the brilliant stuff that they're doing to make you feel better.
Love that. And then I also wanted to pick up on you pointed out another habit that you have as far as something to prevent lower back pain. So if you were to be going through your wellness plan, one of your goals might be, I'm going to prevent or eliminate my lower back pain that I experience in the morning. Under all of those buckets, what you talked about was one of the habits in the recovery bucket that you might be employing, and wrapping the venom around you every morning to ensure that you're moving well. So
you got it.
Awesome.
Yep, we have lots of different strategies and techniques that aid in whether we're preparing for activity or recovering from activity. Those are essential cogs in the wheel of health and performance.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, next question here, John. I can't tell if this question was being a little cheeky or not, but it says, John, do you mean to tell me that I can have a positive outcome in my health from just doing a few minutes of movement each day?
Yes, 100% we can. Provided that movement is vigorous enough. We have shown that by doing vigorous bouts of exercise, as much as 1 minute at a time, with as little as 2 to 3 doses per day, can yield positive changes in cardiorespiratory fitness. So we're actually a part of a research study right now that is being built right now. It'll take place here starting in around June or July of this year, where we are measuring just that, the effects of doing smaller doses of activity, more frequent, like 3 to 4 times a day, over a 12-week period to see changes in cardiorespiratory fitness. And the doctors that are the lead investigators for the team, Dr. Jonathan Little at the University of British Columbia and Dr. Martin Gabala at McMaster University, they have studied this quite a bit. And so we're not inventing this. This has been around for a while. This has been researched for a while. We just have packaged it in a way that can satisfy, I think, people's need for a smaller dose of activity, and organized it in such a way that it will fit the environment in which you are working in or living in to meet the needs for you specifically. Because a lot of these studies are done on a stationary bike. Our study is we're partnering with these investigators to be able to do it a la 7 movements, so that you could the participants will be taking part in doing the study, not on a bike, but following us just like you would be doing at home. So we're going to have some research to support the exact programs that we're putting together here for you guys.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I wonder if there's something to the fact of the prevention piece in this, where even if you're just getting up and moving a little bit throughout the day, but doing it frequently, maybe it's not the outcome from the exercise itself, but the actual interruption of stagnation and being still for too long a period of time that can also have that longer term positive effect on someone's health, ability to move, ability to then participate, their mental health, all of those other pieces that go beyond kind of like, the exercise output advantage that you get from a microdose of movement that we know is there as well.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely. I mean, we all experience it. Like if you're in the car for, a 3-hour car ride and you go to get out, you do not move well.
Right.
If you're in a plane, sitting on a plane for any amount of time, and then you go to walk off on the jetway, don't you notice like how awkward everybody looks when they walk, including yourself? Like you do not move well after you've been sitting for long periods of time. So there's not a single person that I could think of that isn't, in a worse position having been still for a long period of time. Like the human body, and no organism on the planet wants to be stagnant, right? Like it just does not want to happen. We move because that's what fuels everything about us as organisms. Like movement is life. If you stop moving, you die. It's that simple. So, I mean, the original question, as cheeky as it might be, is it possible that I can do this? Yes.
Yeah.
You will feel different. The more you move, the better you will feel. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple. Now, if I move too much, will I not feel good? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So that's why we have to take a careful approach to designing what it is that you're trying to do to make sure that you are doing it in a safe and effective manner. That's it.
Yeah. Pretty simple stuff, right? Okay. Next question. John, if you could get everyone to do one single exercise, what would it be? I guess this is like they're getting at what's your sort of favorite exercise that you prescribe to anybody if you could? Do you have one?
I don't really have a favorite because I'm a connoisseur of movement. Like movement is my life, and this is all I do, and all I ever want to do is be doing stuff. So if I told you what my favorite activity, it would just be playing catch. But if you asked me what my favorite exercise or most impactful exercise,
sure, let's go
that
with
I
that.
might do in a cyclical way.
Yeah.
I mean, it would probably be, well, I've got 2. One is walking. I mean, it's the most fundamental mechanism that we have as human beings that separates us from the animals. We walk on 2 feet, right? which is a massive advantage because we're aerobic organisms. I didn't understand that when I was younger, because I thought, no, everything needs to be done at 100 miles an hour.
That's right.
Go as fast as you can, as hard as you can all the time. But in actuality, human beings are aerobic organisms. So walking is definitely that's your default, and that should probably be the most important thing that you do. Second to that might be laying on the ground and standing up, and then getting back down onto the ground and then standing up again. I mean, those are two ways that you can influence some really important groovy things that happen in the body. One is having the ability to get to the ground, having the ability to get up efficiently. That's one. Two, because you're moving your body up and down against gravity, the heart has to be involved in pumping a ton of blood through the body. Right. So you'll get a great cardiovascular output or stroke volume output as a result of just try it 10 times and tell me that your heart rate doesn't get up quite quickly. Right. And then walking is, probably the best way to improve your aerobic metabolism, which is your body's ability to use oxygen to transmit fats for fuel, and for us to be able to build more mitochondria in the cells, which is your body's like engine, is pretty much at the cellular level, functions by the more mitochondria you have is correlated to in your cells is correlated to the healthier you're going to be. So,
right. Yeah. I love that. No, I always tell people that, the exercise that I would prescribe to them would be the one they're going to do consistently, no matter what it is. Right. Yep. So walking's such a great example of that, because everyone can do it. Yeah. And, get out consistently. That's like the big thing. So let's tie on this. The last question. I actually have a few more, but we're going to tie this into next week. But we talked a little bit about high intensity exercise. So one of the question was, how much high intensity exercise do I actually need? And how much is too much?
Nobody really needs high intensity exercise. It depends on what your goal would be. I mean, if you are playing a sport that is even recreationally that requires high intensity efforts, like the game of hockey, let's say you're a recreational hockey player, you're going to need to, you're not going to need to, but you should be training in a manner that supports the sport or activity that you're playing.
Right.
So in that regard, a high intensity effort is if you're actually really trying hard at your rec hockey, you're not just there for the beer. Right. You're looking at about 45 seconds of a high effort. Now, most of us that have played rec hockey, none of us take a 45-second shift. It's like a 90 to 120 second shift.
Yeah,
so therefore it's not really, no back checking.
Yeah.
So that means that you actually aren't doing a lot of high intensity activity. In that case, it's more aerobic, but technically, for some people that are out of shape, it's going to be high intensity regardless. And that's why they get off the ice so quickly. But it all depends on your goal. I mean, for folks that are new to exercise, they should not be doing any high intensity exercise. Let's define that. That's generally for somebody who's not in shape, could be anywhere from 70 to 80% of their max heart rate, which right. What is that? When you're exercising, you start, breathing really, really hard and you can't carry a conversation. You're probably at the level where you're at too high of an intensity. That's probably an easy mark. If you have a heart rate monitor on and you know what your max heart rate is, then it'd be about 70 to 75%. The more in shape you get, then your high intensity level, it's harder for you to get to that level.
Right.
I recently did a predicted VO2 max test and my threshold is 90% of my max heart rate. So I have to work really, really hard to get into that high intensity range. In terms of quantity or how often that we do it, we say for optimal health and performance, you should be doing about 15 to 20 minutes of high intensity exercise, probably once or twice a week.
Right.
But you have to be in pretty good shape already to be at that level. So we got to take that prescription with a grain of salt. Doing 60 minutes of high intensity steady state exercise, which means you're not letting your heart rate come down, which in some cases is prescribed in the fitness industry, can be catabolic to the system. The body can start breaking down. It can have some negative health consequences as a result of training that way too frequently, too often. And we've seen that in people that have done extended bouts of CrossFit over and over and over and over and over again, like daily kind of thing, that we've started to see some poor health outcomes that come from it. Marathon runners, right. A lot of endurance athletes that are in their 40s suffer from heart attacks as a result of doing training for long endurance sports at too high a heart rate for too long and not giving themselves adequate recovery. So myself now, I'll be 46 this year. I'll do a high intensity bout at max two times a week, but it's for shorter durations.
Right.
One time a week where I'm going pretty hard.
Right.
It cannot be confused with high intensity interval training.
Right.
The popular term, high intensity interval training, means you're getting a rest time after, like complete rest after that high intensity effort. So, and we're not talking like 10 seconds. We're talking like a 1-to-2 or more work to rest ratio, where you're working really hard for that period of time. And then you've got about 2 to 3 times the amount of rest afterwards.
Right.
And then it also depends on the length of time of your duration. So if we're doing like a full out sprint, like an actual physical, I'm going to run as fast as I can somewhere, then our rest times are actually closer to 1-to-10 or 1-to-12
right.
work to rest ratio in an 8, let's say it's a 10-second sprint, then you're about 120 seconds to rest. So there's a lot of nuance to programming, but there's a good example of some things to think about that are popular in the fitness industry, need to be challenged as such, and probably not the right prescription for the vast majority of the people.
Right, not to start with anyways, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
That's something, it could be as long as 6 months before you even introduce that into your exercise.
Right. And
like if I've got somebody who isn't very healthy, like we might not even put that in for an entire year.
Right.
So,
well, and that's what we see as being a significant challenge is folks who haven't been doing much for a very long time, when they seek out some sort of intervention at a studio of some sort, the programming's really not built for them.
No, it's not.
So yeah. So if you're just starting out, take John's advice, start slow, build up. Any last words here, John, as far as this is your first introduction to the Seven Movements community, so leave them a little bit of a message.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really pumped that you signed up and that you want to do this with us. This has been a passion project for Dan and I for a lot of years. We, embarked on the idea of Seven Movements with the intent of serving you, serving the community, serving and kind of cutting through some of the nonsense that has gone on in the fitness industry, in health, in performance, and we want to serve you guys. So our goal is to, make this community, an opportunity for you guys to reach out to us, to connect with us, to connect with one another, just to be supportive of one another. And, we're here to coach you in any way that you need. And to provide you with sustainable, simple exercise prescriptions that you are going to be able to do for the rest of your life. And so we're excited about where the company is going. We're excited about all the opportunities that we have in front of us. We're excited that you want to be a part of it and join in on that, because you are going to share in that experience with us. So thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for growing with us. Thank you for having patience as we grow, and we are really looking forward to what the future brings.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Make sure if you haven't joined the community, you do join the community. If you're part of the community, build your wellness plan, download the app, participate. John and I are in the community there to answer your questions. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll be here on a Q&A where you can get these questions answered. So thank you to all, and to all a good night tonight.